Hey, this is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. Well, this holiday season, are you going to be a curmudgeon carnivore? Are you going to tell Aunt Millie, who's made her special pie, that you're not going to try a bite? Are you going to insist that everybody only serve steak and hamburgers and without buns and all that type of stuff during the entire holiday season? Are you going to be a big a pain in the butt as your average vegan is, demanding that everybody bend to their will? Or are you going to just enjoy yourself? And frankly, the choice is yours. You don't have to be 100% on all the time. You really don't. I mean, there's enough choices out there. You can pick and choose. When I go to a lot of these events, I'm eating predominantly all the meats they've got, maybe a little bit of the cheese. I'll have a little bit of I don't have to have a whole piece of pie, but I'll have a little bit. Part of it to be social. Why? Well, if you have one cigarette, you're not going to get lung cancer. I'm sorry. I've never seen a study that shows one cigarette is going to cause lung cancer. What happens is to all of us is it's not a day of or eating a piece of pie that causes this thing. It's years of it. When you look at how long it takes to develop heart disease and atherosclerosis, that's a 20 and 30-year commitment to make that happen. I think about how long it took me to create enough atherosclerosis to clog up my heart arteries that going to cause a heart attack and require open heart bypass surgery. Well, that was a long time. It was 30 years of eating a standard American diet. And I didn't eat badly. It wasn't like I ate nothing but junk food. I, ate what I was taught back in health class, which was the food pyramid. And mostly grains, a lot of whole grains and stuff like that. Lots of fruits and vegetables. I ate pretty decently if you follow the government recommendations, but that was the wrong stuff. But I didn't learn that until about a decade ago. And that's when I made changes. But before then, I just did what the government basically told me to do. Now, one thing I did do wrong, completely wrong, and I knew it was wrong, was I smoked. For 25 years, I smoked, and that created damage. And finally, I had a moment of clarity and decided, you know what, I'm going to give this up. I can't take that anymore. I can't live with that danger. And then, thankfully, about 8 years ago, I gave up drinking. And I drank heavily for a very long time. And and those things all create damage. That bad diet, years of smoking and drinking, created damage. But thankfully, you know, because of some fortuitous events, I made changes. And over the last decade, I've kind of really cleaned up my act. I've the smoking had gone earlier, the diet had changed, and then giving up drinking. And the inevitable heart attack happened because look, you don't develop heart disease in a week. Eating a piece of bacon is not going to cause your arteries to harden overnight. Sorry, that's not going to happen. It's eating processed food over 20, 30 years that creates the damage. And it did. All that calcified stuff finally gave way. My heart finally gave in. But thankfully, I was in great shape for it. I mean, if you're going to have a heart attack, do it when you're really healthy. And, I was exercising, I was eating right, I was, highly uninflamed. All these things, that you want to be, I'd been that way for almost a decade going into it. And when the heart attack happened, I was able to survive it. Matter of fact, I didn't even know I had it. It came as a real shock to me when I was in the emergency room and they told me that I'd had a heart attack. And they showed me, what was going on with my heart, and there was a lot of old scarring that had been there for a long time that I'd been living with and doing pretty well with, but it eventually caught up with me. And that's 30 to 40 years of bad lifestyle. That's what's going to happen. So with Christmas and Thanksgiving and all these events coming up that you're going to be going to, look, you can stay pretty much on your program, all day. You can enjoy a little bit of all the little different stuff. You don't have to chow down on it. It's not like the old days where you have to do that. I mean, I go to these events and I eat a lot of meat, a little bit of cheese, and I'll take a couple of tastes of dessert. I don't get a whole big slab of the dessert. I mean, I get a little bit just to be social and to enjoy the taste because I want to be part of the group and I enjoy it. I'm not a carb addict. So I know that it's not going to trigger me and make me want to eat nothing but carbs for the rest of the week. It's a holiday. It's an event. It's a one and done. And then I go back to doing what I normally do. And I feel fine. Except when I eat spinach. When I eat spinach, I feel lousy. So I try to avoid spinach. But other than that, don't be like one of those militant vegans that insists that everybody eats nothing but tofu. And when they come to their house, they don't have any meat, and forcing everybody to eat all sorts of ridiculous stuff designed to kind of look like meat, but it's mostly all made of vegetables and soy stuff and things. That's gross. Don't be that person. But, don't feel like you have to inflict your diet on everybody else. And don't feel like you got to hurt Aunt Nancy's feelings when she tries to give you a piece of her special pie that she knows that you really liked as a kid and stuff like that. You don't have to chow down on it. You don't have to eat copious quantities, but you can enjoy a bite or two. Life is short. Enjoy the holidays, enjoy the time with family and friends, which is really the most important part. It's the most healing thing that you can do. When you're not stressing about the food and you can really concentrate on the time with other human beings and you can really share memories, etc., that's healing. And that will more than make up for any inflammation that may come from having a couple of grams of carbohydrates. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore, wishing you and yours a great holiday season. And if you like this channel, please hit like and subscribe. Join this channel with other like-minded folks. I try to put out a couple messages each week. I'm going to be taking about a week off because I'm going to be doing a bunch of schools. And I'm just going to be flat out of town until after Thanksgiving. But other than that, I will usually try to do a couple of messages each week. I'll talk to you again soon.